So apparently, according to them and according to the writers of Snow White, women can't even want to be in love anymore.
They spent $170 million to make the thing, and it had the lowest opening, under $50 million, of any of these live-action Disney remakes that they've ever had.
In a move that has the entire industry talking, Steven Spielberg has allegedly come forward with what some are calling one of the most brutal behind-the-scenes exposés of the year, according to sources close to the legendary director, Spielberg.
This is just so typical of the left. The progressives always finding a way to find their way back to doing something not progressive.
Controversy in Snow White. The dwarves have been eliminated in the live action.
Yeah.
Now it's Snow White and the 7 magical beings.
Wait, it's 7 and the magical beings?
Yeah,
They won't even say and the 7 dwarves?
No, because they're not dwarves. For right now, that's the only jobs that are there.
Broke out with this news, and I'm very, very, very excited and looking forward.
Didn't hold back when discussing the nightmare experience of working with Rachel Zegler on the set of West Side Story. The same Rachel Zegler who, not long ago, was hailed as Hollywood's golden girl, handpicked by Spielberg himself to star as Maria in what was supposed to be her big breakout role.
Oh my God.
Rachel Zegler is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
Have they ever thought about maybe like a little bit of like, I don't know, vulnerability study, opposition research, that sort of thing, before you go and hire some Zoomer who's a lunatic?
Pretending like Rachel Zegler is the first of them all when she looks like Lord Farquaad in the film.
But now, those Golden Girl headlines have turned sour. Spielberg allegedly described Zegler as horrible to work with, citing repeated incidents of mistreatment toward her fellow cast members and crew.
They say all you have to do to make your wish come true is let it echo, 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 echo.
It's awful, generic. Never mind that the lyrics make no sense at all. All you have to do to make your dream come true is let it echo. Is it like on a metaphor?
And this isn't just some random rumor flying around the internet. This revelation comes at the absolute worst possible time for Zegler, as the disastrous box office flop of Disney's Snow White remake continues to haunt both her career and the studio's reputation. We're talking about a project that Disney banked hundreds of millions on, only to watch it crash and burn in front of the entire world. And with Spielberg now reportedly voicing his own frustrations with Zegler's on-set behavior.
Now, I'm guessing that she's not married. I'm guessing that she doesn't have kids. The movie is a complete disaster, by the way.
Into this, the first villain Disney ever had. It's really getting myself into this big crown.
It's got extra musical numbers that are incredibly unnecessary that really add to that runtime. And let me go ahead and let you know that they're absolutely f***ing atrocious.
People can't help but connect the dots. Was this the red flag everyone missed before giving her the keys to one of Disney's most iconic roles? Because right now, the narrative around Rachel Zegler has completely flipped, from rising star to Hollywood liability. But trust me, this story goes deeper than one bad box office number.
Doing catastrophically. They spent $300 million and it currently has a 2.2 out of 10 rating on IMDb.
The movie has a major identity crisis.
And you know the saying, go woke, get broke, and Disney's going to lose money on this movie. And I believe it only made less than $1 million.
Last week was a very big week, objectively a huge week. We had quite a few announcements. His first live action film, which is Snow White and the Evil Queen. And that's me, I'm Snow White, which is so funny.
Spielberg's alleged comments about Zegler's toxic behavior on West Side Story aren't just a reflection of one rough production. They paint a much bigger, much uglier picture about how Zegler conducts herself when the cameras aren't rolling. And when you line that up next to the absolute disaster that was Snow White, well...
Disney deleted Someday My Prince Will Come and made a modernized feminist alternative.
Remaking the movie, they just got rid of the dwarfs. But they have one token dwarf amongst these magical creatures. You actually just went backwards. You actually just erased the dwarfism side of it. The disability, like we're a disability group, you just erase that whole...
Rachel Zegler, like so many kids raised on TikTok, she's all for infertata is the only global solution.
It's hard not to wonder how much of the blame really falls on her shoulders. Let's get into exactly what Spielberg allegedly exposed. Because according to insiders who were there, Zegler's behavior on the set of West Side Story was nothing short of unbearable. We're talking classic diva antics, showing up late to set.
Nobody
Who
wants
wants
that.
a movie about true love? What kind of woman do we want out there seeking true love, Eliana? The outrage.
Part of the first, fairy tale ever told.
Hardcore.
They're petrified of some kind of backlash.
Ignoring direction and treating co-stars like background noise rather than equals. Multiple sources claim that Zegler developed a reputation for being cold and dismissive, often refusing to rehearse with her scene partners and isolating herself from the rest of the cast. One insider reportedly said that she acted like she was above the material, constantly questioning Spielberg's creative choices and clashing with the production team behind the scenes. And it wasn't just tension with the director.
I wanted my money back. It was very disappointing.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
Cast. Members allegedly complained about the way Zegler spoke to the crew, snapping at lighting technicians, rolling her eyes at costume designers, and generally creating a work environment that people described as toxic. These weren't isolated incidents. Sources suggest this was a consistent pattern throughout the shoot, with Zegler's behavior becoming so disruptive that certain crew members actively requested to be reassigned to other departments just to avoid dealing with her. It's hard to ignore just how bad this all sounds, especially coming from a director like Spielberg, who's known for staying pretty neutral when it comes to actor drama. For him to allegedly break that silence and voice frustration over Zegler's treatment of his team, that says a lot. And while Zegler has always maintained that she's passionate and outspoken, there's a fine line between confidence and condescension. According to these reports, she didn't just cross that line, she danced over it. But here's where it gets even messier. Despite all these alleged red flags, Zegler still managed to land one of the biggest roles of her career right after West Side Story. How did that happen? Well, Spielberg himself may have had a hand in that decision too. In a twist that now feels almost ironic, Spielberg reportedly gave Zegler a glowing recommendation following the West Side Story production. Despite all the behind-the-scenes tension, according to industry chatter, Spielberg's endorsement played a major role in Disney's decision to cast Zegler as the lead in their live-action remake of Snow White. At the time, it looked like the perfect next step. She was young. She had the Disney princess look and, at least on paper, she had Spielberg's stamp of approval. What could possibly go wrong? Well, fast forward to now, and it turns out, just about everything. The casting decision, which was initially celebrated as a fresh and exciting choice, has since been ripped apart by critics, fans, and even some Disney insiders. And people are starting to ask the obvious question: did anyone bother to look past the surface before handing Zegler this role? Because if Spielberg really was seeing the cracks during West Side Story, why would he put his name behind her again? Some insiders believe that Spielberg may have felt pressure to support his own casting choice. After all, recommending Zegler to Disney was an extension of his own reputation. Others speculate that Disney may have been so desperate to secure a new face for their remake lineup that they were willing to ignore whatever behind-the-scenes stories were floating around. But whatever the reason, the result was the same. Disney pushed Zegler to the front of the line, banking on her as the next big thing, only to watch the entire project spiral into disaster. And now, with Spielberg's alleged comments about how difficult she was to work with, the spotlight on Zegler's behavior is brighter and harsher than ever. But here's the kicker: Snow White didn't just flop because of bad marketing or poor creative decisions. The real damage started the moment Zegler opened her mouth in interviews. And what happened next would make everything worse. Rachel Zegler's time as Disney's Snow White wasn't just plagued by bad luck, it was a public relations disaster from the moment she opened her mouth. Before the cameras even finished rolling, Zegler seemed determined to alienate the very audience Disney was counting on to show up for this remake. Instead of embracing the legacy of the 1937 classic, the film that literally built the Disney empire, Zegler took every opportunity to slam it. She called the original outdated and weird, mocking the prince's storyline and making it crystal clear that she had zero respect for the source material. In one viral interview, Zegler flat out said, "She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love." Now, to some that might sound like an attempt at a modern twist, but to millions of Disney fans, it came off as arrogant, dismissive, and out of touch. The message was clear: Zegler didn't want to play Snow White. She wanted to destroy her. But the controversies didn't stop at creative choices. Zegler's personal social media presence became a ticking time bomb. She wasn't just promoting the film, she was stirring the pot at every turn. One post in particular, where she voiced support for Palestine during a highly sensitive international conflict, ignited massive backlash. Whether or not audiences agreed with her politics wasn't even the point. Disney had poured hundreds of millions into marketing this film as family-friendly escapism. And here was its lead actress dragging the conversation straight into controversy: boycott. Campaigns popped up overnight. The boycott Snow White trended on Twitter for weeks. Parents, fans, and even longtime Disney loyalists were furious. And as the backlash grew, Disney scrambled to do damage control. But the damage was done. Zegler's words, both about the film and outside of it, had turned the entire project into a battleground. She wasn't just starring in the movie, she was torching it. And while DisneyX tried to put on a brave face, quietly muttering about creative freedom and respecting artistic voices, insiders admit they were panicking behind closed doors. The studio knew they had a full-blown PR nightmare on their hands. And the worst part was, they were stuck with a leading lady who kept making things worse every time she got in front of a microphone. But if you thought the controversy was bad, just wait until you hear what happened when the box office numbers started rolling in. When Disney greenlit the live-action Snow White remake, they weren't hoping for a hit. They were expecting a juggernaut. This was supposed to be the next Beauty and the Beast, the next Cinderella, the kind of billion-dollar cultural moment that keeps the Disney machine running for another decade. But instead, the film face-planted right out of the gate. Snow White crawled to a pathetic $42 million domestically on its opening weekend, a number so low that analysts were left speechless, and it only got worse from there. Week 2 brought one of the sharpest box office drop-offs Disney's seen in years. Theaters started slashing showtimes. Merchandise sat untouched on the shelves. International markets didn't even bother showing up. Globally, the film couldn't even climb its way out of the $194 million range, a laughable return when stacked against its bloated $240 to $270 million production budget. And that's not even counting the millions Disney poured into marketing. To put it plainly, Snow White wasn't just a flop, it was an embarrassment. And here's where it stings the most. This wasn't just a typical misfire. This was a legacy project, one of the crown jewels of Disney's vault, tied directly to the studio's origin story. For it to bomb this hard, that's the kind of failure that sends shockwaves through the entire company. And fans weren't shy about pointing fingers. Everywhere you looked, the same question kept popping up. How did Disney screw this up so badly? Well, after weeks of bad headlines, brutal reviews, and empty theaters, the blame game began. Some pointed to the messy CGI. Others blamed the tired remake formula. But one name came up more than any other: Rachel Zegler. From her trash-talking of the original film to the relentless political drama that followed her every press stop, Zegler became the face of this failure. Right or wrong, audiences associated the flop with her. And in Hollywood, perception is everything. But the fallout didn't stop with bad headlines. Inside Disney's boardrooms, this disaster triggered a full-blown crisis, and the consequences were immediate. The failure of Snow White wasn't just a problem for Rachel Zegler's career. It was a massive, system-wide embarrassment for Disney. The studio had been doubling down on its live-action remake strategy for years, betting big on nostalgia-fueled blockbusters to keep the profits rolling. But Snow White didn't just underperform, it exposed the cracks in the entire plan. According to insiders, Disney execs were blindsided by just how badly the film tanked. There were emergency meetings, frantic Zoom calls. Suddenly, every live-action project in the pipeline was under the microscope. And within weeks of Snow White's collapse, word got out. Disney was quietly hitting pause on several other remakes, including their highly anticipated live-action Tangled. That's right, the next big princess reboot, Tangled, which had already started early development, was abruptly shelved. Sources say the studio is now reassessing its remake strategy, terrified of repeating the same mistake. And really, who could blame them? If Snow White, the film that started it all, couldn't bring people to the theaters, what hope? Did Tangled have? But the panic didn't stop there. Behind the scenes, executives are reportedly rethinking their entire casting philosophy. Gone are the days when they could slap a social media darling onto a remake and call it a day. Now, they're asking the tough questions. Did Rachel Zegler's attitude tank the film before it even had a chance? Were her interviews and political outbursts the final nail in the coffin? And should Disney be more careful about who they hand these iconic roles to in the future? It's a harsh reality check for the Mouse House, one that's already reshaping how they approach their billion-dollar remake machine. But while Disney scrambles to clean up the mess, Zegler's reputation continues to sink lower and lower, and the industry is taking note. Because here's the thing, in Hollywood, nothing ruins a career faster than being labeled difficult. And after Snow White, that label is sticking to Rachel Zegler like glue. Rachel Zegler's rapid ascent in Hollywood has been met with equally swift challenges. From alleged on-set misconduct to controversial public statements, her actions have sparked debates about professionalism and accountability in the entertainment industry. As Disney grapples with the fallout from Snow White, Zegler's future in Hollywood remains uncertain, serving as a cautionary tale about the perils of fame and the importance of maintaining a positive public